For more on this, I want to bring in Susan Crabtree now. She's a White House and national political correspondent for Real Clear Politics and has been reporting extensively on what's going on inside the Secret Service. Susan, great to have you back with us.
Thanks so much for having me again, Vince.
Susan, obviously a million questions here, and you've begun to be able to secure some answers. How does a rooftop like that get left unguarded?
That is still an outstanding question. I have not been able to pin that down. People inside the Secret Service community just in an uproar over that myth. Obviously, it was a glaring mistake. And the fact that they had, I believe, after talking to several Secret Service sources over the last few days, that it was because they didn't have enough counter snipers there. They only the management only approved 2 counter snipers at one team. Usually they have 3 teams of 2 at an event this size and in an open air situation. So I think that's a real fail that the Secret Service is going to have to come to some accounting on.
How much money do we invest in the Secret Service each year?
$30.2 billion annual budget. I can't believe it's a lack of resources.
Did you say 3.2?
$3.2 billion.
$3.2 billion. That's a lot of money. And in terms of protectees, the types of people who need the most protection, I would assume that's going to be the current president of the United States and his primary opponent, Donald Trump.
Well, you would think, right? But from what I understand is they were treating the Donald Trump campaign like any other former president, maybe not like any other former president, but not to the magnitude. It wasn't threat-based. It was more of he's a former president, so he's not going to get as much as the current president of the United States. And there were, from what I'm hearing, even though the Secret Service continues to dispute this, I keep hearing this from great, reliable sources that I've had for more than 12 years now on this beat.
Yes.
That there was repeated requests from the Trump campaign and from also within the Secret Service itself, those assigned to his detail for more security because the threats were heightened, obviously, this year.
Did you say that they didn't make an assessment based on threats? It was merely based on Trump's status as a former president, that he was receiving the level of protection he was receiving?
Well, I'm sure I'm sure in the hearings we're going to hear them parse that out a little bit, better than it looks like right now. But it wasn't clearly threat-based. In fact, there was an event, a Joe Biden event in Pittsburgh that that evening, and from what my Secret Service that I trust, their sources tell me,
yes,
that there wasn't enough counter snipers, there wasn't enough special agents to go around. Also, because the agents that were assigned to Trump's detail were stretched thin because of all the activity. They've been working 7 days a week for many weeks in a row, so that there was a lot of what they called the sources called temps on the ground, different sort of stringer type special agents from different field offices, and only a few, not even a handful. I want to pin this down a little bit better, but I'm hearing that there was only a few, maybe fewer than that, special agents that were regulars on the detail, on Trump's regular detail at that rally. So they were just all thrown together and expected to work like a team.
Now, there are at least 2 things I've seen that the Secret Service is officially disputing on the record. One of them is They say that Trump's request, the campaign's request for additional resources and being denied, that never occurred. They say that's not true. The other piece is that Jill Biden's protection, drawing down from Donald Trump's protection, didn't happen. They're claiming, I saw them tweet at you to try and say, that's not true. But as you point out, you're not just shooting from the hip, Susan Crabtree. You're reporting this out based on your sources in the Secret Service.
That's correct. And the Secret Service sources have not been wrong since 2014. I've been reporting on this beat since the Obama administration had their string of failures in the Secret Service, and there was a series of hearings, months of hearings that I sat through with Director Clancy at the time,
Yes.
and then there was a lot of mistruths that were told at those hearings that then the lawmakers had to go back and correct and grill Clancy to actually come clean on some of these mistruths. That the Secret Service has, especially the upper echelon, has a history of covering up, and it has a history of there's a culture of corruption. That's the phrase that has been used since back in 2014, and unfortunately, I don't see they never followed President Obama and President Biden didn't follow the Blue Ribbon Commission that was convened back in 2014, 2015 to appoint an independent, someone outside of the Secret Service, maybe a law enforcement expert, someone with a long-time storied career in law enforcement, to the head the Secret Service, so that we could get outside of this sort of insular culture where they have uneven discipline.
Well, think about, I know you have a better sense of, you have an encyclopedic mind for this about what the Secret Service has been up to, but two things immediately jump to mind for me. One of them is the cocaine investigation at the White House. Cocaine is found in the White House. The Secret Service says they're conducting an investigation. The investigation is over in basically no time. They destroy the cocaine and they say it's impossible to figure out who left it here. The other is in Hunter Biden's saga with his gun being thrown into a dumpster. The Secret Service was alleged to have been involved at a time when Joe Biden was not vice president of the United States, and Hunter Biden would not have been entitled to Secret Service protection in any way. And yet the allegation was that the Secret Service intervened to try and assist or maybe get a hold of the paperwork for the gun sale. That all stinks to high heaven. And as far as I'm aware, Susan, we still don't have any clear answers about any of that.
It strains credulity to say that they do not know, or there were no fingerprints on the cocaine bag. And I think that really started a renewed sense of people not trusting the Secret Service again. You see this sort of pop up, and then from time to time, there's different members, chairman of the House Oversight Committee, different chairmen rotate through the Department of Homeland Security Committee. And so there's not consistent oversight to make sure these problems that we've seen for years and years and years in the Secret Service, that they are solved. But, right now with this new director, we have a whole new set of interesting issues that are popping up because she is supportive of diversity, inclusion, equity policies and hiring practices that a lot of people within the Secret Service are questioning. And there were warning signs dating back 3 months ago, and that's when we saw that incident at Joint Base Andrews,
right,
with a female agent, basically having a mental breakdown and attacking her supervisors with her gun in its holster, and they had to wrestle her to the ground. And the Secret Service called it a medical incident, and I understand she's out on administrative leave. They won't tell me anything about that. Here's the situation. There is a problem right now within the Secret Service because a lot of these agents and officers who dedicate their lives don't believe that the vetting of agents is up to the caliber it should be. And even when the female agents that you saw did perform well, I was told that there was a lot of praise for the female agent who spread her arms out to cover President Trump. But as Elon Musk sort of joked today, the agent is 5'5", and the Donald Trump is 6'4". His whole torso was exposed. There used to be the feeling that you should have very tall Secret Service agents, at least as tall as the president himself,
right?
Former president himself, guarding him. So, even though women, I've heard that there are women that have, exceed some men in their training abilities, their strength levels, all of the tests that in the extensive training they have to go through. But there are limits to some some of the jobs that the Secret Service requires.
Of course. If your body is supposed to be the shield, it has to be sizable enough to protect the target. It's just a very basic principle, and that wasn't the case. We all saw it in that video. Kimberly Cheadle, I see a report today from an old friend of mine, Stephen Nelson, in the New York Post. His report today is that the reason Kim Cheadle, the Secret Service director, got the job was that Jill Biden's office pushed for it. Apparently, she was on Jill Biden's Secret Service detail back when Joe was vice president of the United States, and I guess she took a shining to the woman, and now she gets to be the director of the Secret Service as a result of that?
Steve Nelson is an old colleague of mine. I trust his reporting. I had not looked into that myself, but it is Jill Biden having a say that's part of this issue. Why some of I'm not sure that the president of the United States should be appointing his own Secret Service detail. They're often too close to these people that they are counting on to save their lives, and it creates this sort of almost too close for comfort or security in some situations. Are they choosing the right person? Or are they just choosing the people that they're most comfortable with, the ones that will go to bat with them for them when they need to not report things they should report? Maybe even get involved in a cover-up of their son's their cocaine habits. It's not a healthy situation, and we've seen it time and time again. And these agents and officers that are highly trained and are willing to put their bodies as human shields to protect the president deserve better leadership. And it is time that Congress provide consistent transparency and accountability.
Susan Crabtree, finally, just on the issue of the attempted assassination of President Trump, the most important issue of the day, why was Trump still on that stage and not removed at all when it became clear that there was any sort of potential problem or threat? It seems to me, we were talking to Eric Prince earlier. He was saying that he did the countdown on it, and he believes that the cops were alerted for at least 2 minutes prior to the shooting that there was a massive problem. Somebody was up on that roof. You heard Dan Bongino was saying today that his sources are telling him that they had eyes on this guy from the moment he entered the perimeter and then lost sight of him, which, of course, should raise a bunch of red flags. Why was Trump still on the stage? Why was he not stopped from going up? Why was he not pulled down in the first place?
Well, at the very least, he should have been pulled aside. There should have been immediate radio that there was a suspect. This was just a person crawling on a roof. As soon as people started pointing to him. But that is the biggest mystery of this whole thing. I am told that there's a culture in the Secret Service, and sort of I was told at first it was the rules of engagement. I'm told now it's a looser term. It's not set in stone. But there's this idea that it would be good if you have time to radio down. If you're a counter sniper and you see such a situation, not to immediately fire on the person, but to call in the top detailee, the special agent in charge or the lead agent for the event, to get permission to shoot. Certainly, you do not want to be shooting a fellow police officer if there was some belief that they thought maybe that person was a fellow police officer that was up there investigating something, but it's a problem that they didn't know which man was theirs, and very, very least that Trump should have been rushed off that stage.
And do we know at this point, were the snipers staring at the shooter? In the video that we've seen, they seem to be pointing in his direction. Were they staring at him, watching him, I guess I don't know what they were waiting for, but they were waiting.
They were waiting. They err on the side of caution. That's part of the culture, and do not shoot first and ask questions later. Make sure that it's not a fellow law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
That's what I'm told, that there was some concern that it might be a fellow law enforcement officer. They certainly don't want to shoot anyone innocent, bystander, or somebody, just a wacky person with a telescope. I was told, whether you believe that or not, that they couldn't figure out if that was a telescope or a gun, and it seems like fairly obvious it was a gun from the footage, but in the heat of the moment, they want to make sure. I'm told that this is part of the culture, and I'm sure that it will get a lot of
It's crazy, though.
a lot of vetting and in the upcoming congressional
Yeah,
hearing.
but hesitating to take the shot. We keep seeing that throughout the Biden administration, whether it's the Abbey Gate or now as there's an attempted assassination on President Trump. And of course, there was a man who was killed in that crowd, a firefighter. More on that coming up. In the meantime, Susan Crabtree, thank you very much for your time today.